Joe,
Yes, Greg.
I was thinking you could pretty much make any movie better by just doing one thing. You know what that thing is?
I think I do. Tell me, though.
By adding the letter S to the end of it.
What about making the S a dollar sign?
That's even better. But just think about it, like just I'm just riffing here. Rambos.
Yeah, if you drop the S from Star Wars to Star War, it's not as cool. You want more wars in that kind of scenario.
But RoboCops.
Ooh, RoboCops. Terminators.
You would watch that. Sure. You would fork your money over.
Yeah. So with that said, welcome into the Prime Cut Podcast, a movie discussion show aimed at recommending deep cuts, flawed gems, and forgotten masterpieces. Greg, what are we talking about today?
You mentioned it, the dollar sign. Where are you going with that? I think I know where you're going.
Yeah, that's
spill it.
Famous little piece of trivia. So we're covering the 1986 classic sci-fi action thriller Aliens. Emphasis on the ends.
Just tell me one thing, Burke. You're going out there to destroy them, right? Not to study, not to bring back, but to wipe them out.
That's the plan.
All right, people, on the ready line. Are you me? Yeah! Are you me? Yeah! Are you? Get on the ready line, Marine! Get some to die! Get on the ready line!
Get your light up here.
Keep back, don't scare her.
Movement! Talk to me, Hudson!
I got signals, I got readings in front and behind.
There's nothing back here.
Look, I'm telling you, there's something moving and it ain't us.
Get them out of there!
How could they cut the power, man? They're animals.
There's movement all over the place.
5 meters, man. 4.
Aliens. This time, it's war.
And the dollar sign piece was the pitch that ultimately won James Cameron this movie. It's directed by James Cameron, not the original director of Alien. That was directed by Ridley Scott. But when Cameron was pitching this to studio executives, he famously wrote the title Alien and then added an S and turned that S into a dollar sign. It was like, more money, more aliens. This movie will be great. And they were like, okay. And it is.
When I first read that piece of trivia, I misread it, and I read it as he put the S at the beginning of the word alien. I was all, Salian? Who wants to see that movie?
Yeah.
That movie
That
sucks.
would not make more money. Probably not be greenlit either. The problem with this movie, so there's a problem and there's a reason that we're doing it. The problem is it does not fit into our 3 categories, right? This is not a deep cut. It's not a flawed gem, nor is it a forgotten masterpiece. It is definitely not forgotten. There are no flaws, in my opinion, and it's not a deep cut. But Alien Romulus is currently in theaters, and so we thought this would be a great time to pull out Aliens, which is the primest cut of the Alien movies, in my opinion, I think, which is kind of why we're leaning towards it.
Yeah. The Romulus movie that's out right now has a lot of callbacks to all the previous movies.
Have you? And you've not seen Romulus? So, I have not seen it yet.
No, it's on the agenda to see. So from what I've done in research, it sounds like the movie, it's not horrible, which some alien movies are pretty bad.
Yeah, there have definitely been some misses in the sequel department. And there's also the 2 Alien versus Predator movies, which I don't know if you count those as alien movies. I don't. There are elements of those that are cool, but they're pretty bad, unfortunately.
Right. The cool thing about this one is that out of the entire series, if I had to rank them, this is probably my favorite of all the ones I've seen.
It's so tough, dude, because I'll say this. I return to this one the most. I think Alien is a better movie, but this one is really fun. There's so many compounding scenes of dilemmas and peril that the characters are in. Sigourney Weaver has never been tougher. She's like one of the toughest movie stars, action stars ever. Like if you have a top 10 action star list and you do not have Ripley on it, I think your list sucks. Sorry.
Yeah. As far as her in this movie, I believe that this was, she was the first ever female to be nominated for a Best Actress award playing an action role in a movie.
For sure.
Which is, that's, and then one of the end scenes in this movie is so
sick. Hard. Tough.
Yeah. When that end scene comes out, I like want to stand up and cheer every time.
So hold on, before we get ahead of ourselves, we got to do some business.
Sure.
Get to business, right, Mark? Prime Cut Podcast, the Prime Cut Podcast at gmail.com. Kind of like the Ohio State, the Prime Cut Podcast at gmail.com. That's where we collate, collect, review, go over all of the reviews that you've sent us. If they're negative, we usually delete them. But if they're positive, we love to hear those things. We also take listener recommendations there. We've done quite a few movies that our listeners have recommended. We're going to continue that process. We have an Instagram at prime _cut _podcast on Instagram, YouTube channel, Prime Cut Podcast, in your search bar. And then Greg, tell them about the TikTok.
Man, the TikTok is where it's at. That's where we post up all the funny clips from the podcast. And so if you want to get the ultra abridged high note version of it, you can jump on there. And then right after the episode comes out over the next few days, you'll see some clips drop with key moments from the podcast.
Yeah, a lot of incels were mad about my Nolan comments regarding Looper and all that. So feel free to jump in on the comments. Favorite, save, whatever you do there on TikTok, you nerds.
He's just doubling down on the nerds that are mad. The Nolan fanboys are going to come looking for you,
those
Joe.
nerds.
They were ready for you, man.
And they're going to give you a nice 3-hour talking to. And at the end of it, you're going to be real confused about love, time, and space.
Right. That's right. We're doing 2 James Camerons in a row, not by design, but we called an audible because Romulus was in theaters. Like, you know what? Let's try and pair this up with a movie that we love, which is Aliens. And so we kind of started to talk about it a little bit. Is there anything, if you listen to our last week's podcast on The Abyss, is there anything, Greg, Jimmy Cameron wise, that we didn't hit on that we want to hit on here? One thing I'm going to say to preface your comments, I didn't see a ton of like negativity about this movie like I have about some of his other ones. Maybe it's because it was earlier in his career and he didn't really feel like he had the cachet to order everybody around. I don't know. But I mean, this movie is incredible and he's a big reason for it. But what are you got any other little anecdotes for Big Jim Cameron?
Yeah. So as far as this movie goes, I mean, James Cameron's basically like we talked about at the beginning, he writes the S at the end of this movie. He pitches it and the studios are like, you son of a bitch, we're in. He's done it again. James Cameron is the king of sequels. I mean, right out the gate, he comes out with Piranha 2. Never seen it, but he doesn't even. Who's ever heard of Piranha 1? We only know about Piranha 2 because James Cameron. Right. Next movie is Aliens, the sequel to Alien. Other notable movies that he's done is going to be obviously Terminator 2, which is the best. Well, nope, Joe likes the first one, but it's the most popular of the Terminator series. And the fanboys might. All right, let me just put it this way. The rest of the Terminator series after part 2, I think we can probably agree for the most part, sucks.
Okay. I got to say one thing. Terminator Salvation, Christian Bale. It's pretty weak, but there is a pretty hard scene when Sam Worthington is like in the wasteland. He's a Terminator, and they're playing Rooster by Alice in Chains.
You just like it because it's Alice in Chains. True. They won you over with that.
But other than that movie's pretty bad.
I could put Alice in Chains on any movie, and Joe would be like, "It's not so bad.
That's kind of true. That's
okay."
True. That's a good point. But you're right. It's interesting because for a couple of those Terminator sequels, Cameron was not involved, and then he comes back to them, and he didn't make them any better. They're not good.
No, but the whole Terminator franchise is still riding on the coattails of the success of Part 2.
100%. It really is.
They
need to stop.
And if another Terminator comes out, I'm gonna see it.
Yeah, dude. There's a Netflix animated show coming out. I'm watching it. It comes out like next week. I'm gonna watch it. It looks crazy good.
Let me ask you this: if Part 1 and Part 2 of Terminator never existed, would you have any interest in that?
No. You proved your point there. That's very true. Yeah. Yeah. No.
Right.
I'm not buying it. If it's like the one where Arnold's carrying the coffin around. Remember that with the machine gun in it?
Yeah. Is that the one where he was like a lumberjack in the woods?
Come on, what are we doing?
What are we doing?
But Jimmy Cameron. Okay, so one of the things that we talked about on The Abyss is the amount of practical effects, and the amount of special effects are staggering on The Abyss. They still look great, but they also did a lot of the stuff. This movie, Greg, this is like almost 100% practical, I believe. The scenes that are not are like the flying scenes. The space, the ship in space flying, there's like the little lander that crashes. There's the scene where Bishop's like landing it in that mechanical bay. Like those are computer generated, but the practicality, the aliens themselves, the xenomorphs, those are practical, and it makes it so much better. It's so much cooler because they're real. Way scarier.
Yeah, the Queen Alien at the end of the movie, I think it took something like 14, 16. It took double digits of people to operate the big like Queen Alien.
And it's terrifying. I hate it. It's so disgusting.
Right. And then the xenomorphs, it's actually kind of funny whenever they have like the big shootouts with them and there's like explosions and they're getting blown up. You'll see him flying through the air, and it's obviously a dude in a xenomorph suit doing a front flip. But it's not CGI.
No, and the way that he films it, and we're going to get into this. He films certain scenes, and he masks. He uses like sleight of hand to make it so it looks compelling, and it actually enhances the terror, I think. But I think part of the reason he's doing that is because it's practical effects. Like the whole scene where the Marines first encounter the xenomorphs in the nest, and they are on like their cameras, basically like GoPro 30 years before GoPro. That scene, you can tell he's like, okay, I'm going to cut this back and forth because I don't really have the ability to show these xenomorphs like close up and all this stuff, showing people fighting them. But it also makes it so much scarier because you're watching these people from like Ripley's point of view, and she's watching on this like bad camera. And it's just like he's compounding the ability of you to understand what's going on, but also you're like, oh, this is way more scary. It's really genius level stuff. Okay, so go ahead.
The other thing about this movie is this was written by, and I got to say it this way specifically, this was written by James Cameron and his then wife.
Which wife, huh?
Oh.
Because he married his wife multiple times. This was like his first wife, I believe.
Not
and
Catherine Bigelow,
he made
not Linda
movies
Hamilton, the other gal.
Yeah. Yeah. He married multiple women that he worked with. So there's that. The other thing I was going to say about this is that originally Sigourney Weaver wasn't going to do another Alien movie. She didn't want to reprise her role in that. And originally she was playing a little bit of like, I'm not going to do it. And James Cameron played hardball and originally said, okay, we're going to make the movie anyways. We're going to make it without the character of Ripley. And he called up Arnold Schwarzenegger's manager to try and get Arnold potentially into the movie instead. Now,
I don't like that.
This is never what he actually wanted. But what happened is Hollywood worked this way, is that happened and the manager started spreading, the rumors spread like wildfire. Then Sigourney Weaver read the script and realized that she's
like,
that they're actually going to do this movie without her. And so she read it and she realized, whoa, she actually he does a service to the character of Ripley, which James Cameron does make women badass in all of his movies.
Yeah, nobody's harder than
like
Rick
all
Sigourney
of his movies.
In this movie. No one. She's as hard as hard gets. Hard.
Yeah, but but like if you were at a show and Sigourney Weaver was in the pit, you're definitely getting crowd killed.
She is elbowing people, forearm shiver.
Yeah, for sure.
But the thing is, Greg, here's what I really like about Ripley's character in context of her being so tough. She's not a super soldier. She's not the leader to start with. She's not in charge of anything. She's just like an advisor. Hey, I've seen these things. She's reluctant to go, but she ends up she's super capable. She's very empathetic. She's very smart and logical. And she ends up being like the de facto leader of the entire movie because of her abilities, really, and her humanity.
In the first movie, she was the unexpected hero, and this one, she was definitely the hero that we didn't ask for, but the hero that we deserved.
Nice. I mean,
very nice. Very
because the
well
thing is,
together.
Greg, like you're right. In one, so okay, let's set up Alien really quick. Everyone has probably seen this movie or is familiar with it. Alien is where we first encounter the xenomorph. It's on the ship. The movie takes place on this ship, the Nostromo. It's basically like a tanker ship, like a cargo vessel that is moving stuff through space hundreds of millennia in the future. And the cast, they are just like blue collar people, basically. Like they're like truck drivers. They come across this, they land on a planet. They find the engineer. There's all this lore and Prometheus and Alien Covenant go into all this, but they find the engineers, which are these race of people that apparently are responsible for the xenomorph creations. They find their ship. They find some of them. One of their crew gets infected with this face hugger thing. They bring it back on board. They don't know what it is. The thing bursts out of his chest. It grows into a xenomorph almost instantly, and it terrorizes the ship, kills the entire crew except for Ripley, who is like the third in command of the Nostromo. She eventually shoots the alien xenomorph out of the airlock.
The airlock
goes into hypersleep, which is like a thing there with the cat, and that's how the movie Alien ends. Right. Which is exactly how Aliens starts, literally like minutes after.
But they're totally different
Completely
movies.
different.
And
Alien is like a stalker horror movie. And Aliens is a war action movie. Yeah.
Yes. James Cameron didn't make a horror movie necessarily, but this feels like it could have easily have been a Michael Bay movie if Michael Bay was writing these type of movies back then.
And I think the whole point of the first movie is there's only one xenomorph. It's super scary. You don't see it very much, which is like genius. Ridley Scott genius stuff, right? You don't really see it until the end a lot. It's obscured. You know it's out there. The kills are off screen. It's really like dread, terror, doom stuff, which is awesome. So when Cameron takes over, he's like, okay, well, I'm not going to do that exact thing. It's already been done and done to a really high level. What am I going to do? I'm going to have a bunch of them, more aliens. And I'm going to have someone having to fight against them, which is the Marine like platoon that we deal with.
Right. The cast here for
Aliens. Let's talk about the cast.
So obviously we've got Sigourney Weaver. What was the first thing you remember her from?
Man, probably Ghostbusters. Dana, she plays Dana in Ghostbusters. Remember that? That's probably the first thing I saw her in, because that was like more of like a kid level thing. But I saw her in these movies pretty young in my experiences with her. Like this is like I didn't come to Aliens and Sigourney late. She was like early. So I'd put her with this more than anything else.
I think I first saw her with in the movie Gorillas in the Mist.
Yeah. Okay. It's good.
Oh, whoa. What a throwback.
Yeah. Well, what about you, Mark? What was your first memory of seeing Sigourney in a movie?
Man, I'm maybe from a different time, but you know, I was young and there was this little movie out called Heartbreakers.
Oh yeah, Jennifer Love Hewitt.
Remember that one?
Man.
Oh man. It's certainly ingrained some sort of
adolescent Mark
type for me.
Yeah.
Yeah, man.
Great Gene Hackman role.
Yeah, she looked. Yeah, man, and he was old.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like that's one of those actors who's always been
for sure.
Old. Even in 2001, that man was old.
That's like Leslie Nielsen. Has that guy ever not had
white hair? For sure.
Yeah, always had white hair.
The other movie I really love her in, and she's got like a lesser role, but it's I guess somewhat newer, is what is it? Cabin in the Woods? Is that what it is?
She is in that.
She's the director. Well, not the director, but she's the director.
Well, the thing is that this movie really gave her like she can play any sort of like leader because of these movies, I think. Mm-hmm. Because of this movie, really.
This was definitely one of the first movies where we got a badass female lead. Typically you just wouldn't see that in this type of movie, and so it opened the door in a lot of ways for some other people. I mean, Jamie Lee Curtis was another big one around this time with Halloween, but Jamie Lee Curtis wasn't as badass as Sigourney Weaver in this. Ripley is tough, and Jamie Lee Curtis is kind of like just stumbling through success in the movies. The later ones, like the newest ones, she's a little different, but in the first two, at least, it's a very different Jamie Lee Curtis.
I think she does a really good job at not being scared. Like, she's surrounded by Marines. She's surrounded by people who are used to combat. And the most mature person in the room is always her. She always has this like blank. It's not fear, but it's like, oh my God, I can't believe I'm like, why is no one listening to me? Why do y'all not believe me? I've literally been here and no one's listening to her. But she's never afraid. She's full on ready to kick this alien's ass. And it's really cool what she does there, man.
She's great. We're going to talk more about Ripley as we go. Obviously, she's so good in it. Who else you got, Greg?
Yeah. Well, I got to say that the other cool thing about Ripley in this movie is that she's like a soldier, but she also has this very maternal role in the movie. She basically is like yeah, she takes on the role of like a mom, and at the end of the movie it's like the culmination of mom versus mom.
Yeah, for sure.
This is a good Mother's Day movie, if I'm being honest.
Yes.
Start a new holiday. Here we go.
Great call. That's right.
But other than that, let's see who else is. Real quick, Sigourney Weaver was paid $11 million to do this movie.
It seems like a lot in '86.
Which was the
lot.
entire budget that was the original Alien movie.
Like it.
That's how much they wanted her back. And I mean, the movie was a success. Normally a lot of sequels suck, but this one does not fall into that category.
Yeah, when you add an S to these movies, Greg, there's a formula.
Mark always talks about the formula.
The formula.
Why didn't they do Fast and the Furiouses?
Too Fast, Too Furious it's too good. You know what I'm saying?
Okay, let's talk about the other supporting actors in this movie. We got Joe's favorite, Michael Biehn.
Yeah, love Biehn.
The Biehn man.
So Bean's in Tombstone. He's also in The Abyss, which we just covered. We've kind of covered Biehn quite a bit, but his role in this movie is a little bit cooler, I think, than
awesome.
some of the other ones.
This is his second best role.
Hey, did you know that Biehn? What was his first? Is it Tombstone?
Terminator.
Oh,
yeah,
Terminator.
He's awesome in Terminator.
Okay. Did you know that he wasn't originally in this movie? He was replacing James Remar.
James Remar. Okay, I know James Remar. He's good. Similar. They're like similar character, like secondary, like tough guys, but he's better.
So this movie I believe was filmed in London or something, and James Remar is actually in the movie playing the same character that Michael Biehn is in, but you only see him from the backside, and they use the footage where you can't see his face.
That's crazy. Interesting. What, they just had trouble with Remar or something?
He was in rehab for drugs, and at the last minute, Cameron hit up Biehn and was like, "Hey man, can we get you out here?" And he flew out like on one weekend's notice and was on board to do
Biehn's
the movie.
man.
When James Cameron calls, you go.
Yeah. Well, they'd already worked on Terminator, so they had a good rapport.
Yep.
And then he did The Abyss.
Yep.
We talked about some of the people that have worked with James Cameron on some movies before multiple times. I think I mentioned to you, Joe, the stepmom in Terminator 2 is also in Alien, if I'm not mistaken.
She's in Aliens, bro. She's Vasquez.
Oh, yeah, Vasquez. And then she's also in Titanic.
Yes. Which I have never seen. But I heard that she's in it.
Plays the Irish. She plays the Irish mom with the two kids that die a very sad death. Joe,
I think most people died pretty sadly on that real life tragedy.
There's a lot to be said about that movie specifically. That movie messed people up. There was a lot that went wrong on the Titanic set, as most James Cameron movies behind the scenes
and the
are.
Titanic itself. A lot went wrong there, you know.
Well, we had a small problem, a little hole, you know what I mean? Anyway, so yeah, she's in this movie, and she's badass.
Yep. She's a little over the top, kind of annoying at points, but her arc, the end of her arc is really good. She's tough at the end. Tough.
She comes around. She comes around. Yeah. And I love that they give her the biggest gun out of everybody.
That's great. Yeah.
I'm like, yeah, let's give her this giant cumbersome gun.
And then to mention, everyone on that ship wants to have sex with that woman.
Yes.
Everyone. They make it a point every time she talks that someone is like, yeah, me too. Oh, I would do it immediately. Like, they don't give up on how much they're
like openly ogling her. And it's almost like Sigourney, like Ripley gets some glances, but everybody knows, like, don't. She's not having it.
So other people in this movie, I got to talk about my favorite character in this entire movie. More than like Sigourney's badass. Sigourney's hard. Ripley's character is rules. But damn it, Bill Paxton.
He's great. He's kind of he
does
gets
it
a little
again.
old in this movie, but Greg,
You
he
just need to
whines a
bite your
lot,
tongue,
dude.
Joe.
He complains a lot. He complains. If you were on a road trip with Hudson, you'd be like, dude, shut the fuck up, man. We're gonna leave you at the next Buc-ee's.
Okay, so Bill Paxton's character Hudson, he starts off so arrogant. He's so arrogant, and by the first misstep, he is such a
Melting
coward
down.
through the rest of the movie.
Although he comes back though. He comes back around.
He does, but you kind of get a glimpse of it in the beginning too. But I read that Bill Paxton basically ad-libbed almost all of his
I saw
lines.
this in the research. Yep. All of the, especially like his very like iconic ones. Game over, man. That was ad-libbed.
He goes, what are those things, man?
He's great. I mean, he is good. There was like a 10-minute window after the first assault when they get their asses kicked, that he is just like nonstop, just like complaining. I don't know if you noticed, man. We just got our asses kicked in there. And you're like, Jesus, man. All right, take it easy. Like, dial it down.
The dude is such a baby.
He's good though. He's really good in this. I mean, it's perfect. Exactly what he's supposed to do.
Yeah, he's great in it. The scene with him and Lance Henriksen.
Oh yeah.
There's a scene where they do the knife thing, and I think this is probably the most common piece of trivia that most people know about this movie. But the scene basically is Lance Henriksen plays an android, not an iPhone. Plays an android, and
synthetic.
They tell him to stack his hands up, and they go do the knife thing. So they grab Bill Paxton's hand and put it underneath Lance's hand, and then he takes a knife and starts stabbing between each finger and going faster and faster. And obviously the footage is sped up, but everybody knew he was going to do that except for Bill Paxton. So when Bill Paxton starts like screaming, freaking out, that was a surprise to him as well.
Oh, I didn't know.
Yeah, and I like that scene when he gives him the knife. He's like, "Do the trick, man." And Henriksen like balances the knife in his hand. It's just like one scene. I don't know why he does that. It just looks cool. I don't know. Yeah. Well, and there's also the backstory of there's a synthetic. He says I prefer artificial person or artificial human, I think is what Lance Henriksen says. But there's one in Alien that malfunctions in the first movie and causes a lot of problems. And so Ripley is immediately distrustful of Bishop, the Lance Henriksen character, the synthetic. She's like, I don't want this thing here. And it's interesting how they do it because he's so, I mean, they make zero attempt at making, he doesn't look different. He doesn't talk weird. They're just like, oh, this is like a robot, but he's literally looks exactly like a person, which is cool because you're like, oh, she's talking to him like he's a robot, but I think my mind is telling me he's a person because I'm looking at it. You know what I'm saying? She's like, what's this thing doing here? And he's like sitting right next to her. And you're like, oh, that's rude. And you're like, wait a minute. That's like saying that to your Roomba. It's not rude. It's a robot. It's not a real thing, but it's like an optical illusion. I don't know. I got that this time, at least.
Yeah. Man, that dude has done a ton of movies. And apparently when he signed on to do Aliens, he said that if this movie didn't work, he was done acting. And thankfully this movie took off, and my God, he did so
He's
many
a character
movies.
actor. He's super, like very recognizable face. He's got like intense eyes. His face is like weathered. He's awesome. I love Lance Henriksen at just about everything. I think he's great. Hard Target, Greg. Hard Target. My favorite band. Yeah, he's great in it. He's the bad guy.
He was also in a Steven Seagal movie.
He's in what's the Brian Bosworth one? Stone Cold. He's the biker gang leader in that. He's good.
Yeah, he's got a huge list of movies he's been in. He was also in Aliens versus Predator.
Oh, he is?
Yeah. And then he also reprises his role in the third one, Alien, the third movie, Alien 3.
Alien
I think
3,
that's what they
the David
call it.
Fincher one on the prison. Yeah, he is in that one. That one's not very good.
Yeah,
Alien
not very
Resurrection
good.
is
David
worse.
Finch.
But Prometheus and
he's
Covenant to me are very good. I like both of those a lot.
agreed. Yeah, the third one not so
Alien
hot.
3.
Yeah.
Well, there was supposed to be like a complete tie into this movie, and they just like they kind of scratched it. Like Hicks was supposed to be in it, and they're like, nah, we're not going to have him, which I think made it worse.
Yeah. And then they kill Michael Bihn's character like right out the
he's
rip.
dead. Like as the movie starts, like, oh, he died. Yeah, it sucks.
Hey, he got paid more for that than for
I know.
Aliens.
I saw that. Sad. And that's David Fincher's first
crazy,
movie,
right?
man. That's David Fincher's directorial debut. It's just he hates that movie. There's things about it that are cool, but it doesn't work. I don't think.
It's flawed. It's
highly
flawed.
Should we get into the plot here?
Yeah. I think that gets us up to speed. Oh wait, we got one last person, Paul Reiser.
Yeah, great, good call. Talk about him.
This dude sucks. I mean, he's a great actor, but as his character, he plays his character Burke.
Yeah,
this dude sucks. He's a corporate suit in this movie, and I got to say this: there's this theme in James Cameron movies where he hates. Like he does two things. One, he hates big corporations. So big corporations are the issue in multiple movies. Avatar, they're after unobtainium. Terminator 2,
Skynet.
They're trying to stop Skynet. Aliens, he plays the corporation there. And then in Titanic, I mean, they're like, speed up. We want to make better time.
Oh, is that what happened?
It's okay. I'll explain.
That's basically what happens in Titanic.
It's because they went too fast. I see. Okay.
Yeah. And so they because the corporation wanted better results.
Weyland-Yutani
it's always about
the corporation in this movie.
Yeah.
You're right. Paul Reiser
Weyland-Yutani
works for Weyland-Yutani. He's very slimy. Great role. It just, again, another layer of nuance to this movie that you don't need him to be double crossing them or to have this like ulterior motive and have Weyland-Yutani be like, oh, we want to try and cultivate these, let's bring some of these things back. Maybe we could use them. That isn't necessary. This movie kicks ass without that, but that is just like another layer of just more complexity that helps enhance the experience. It's just so cool how that's part of this movie. And the beginning of the movie, because we're going to get into the plot, the beginning of the movie is really the first 10 minutes is like, if you've worked for a corporation ever, if you've ever had a boss, that is the first 15 minutes of this movie. Because basically what happens is Ellen Ripley, the movie starts immediately after the first one. It starts like minutes later. We see that her ship has been reclaimed by some scavengers. They get her out of hypersleep. Everything is frozen. They get her out of hypersleep and they find out, oh, she's alive. And you're immediately switched to like a hospital. And so she is basically waking up and she has to go through this like corporate dance with Weyland-Yutani because she was a Weyland-Yutani employee. And we find out, Greg, how long was she in hypersleep?
57 years.
Which I think they could have hit that a little harder. That's like staggering. Everybody that you know is dead.
So there's like a small, it's such a small piece to it, the story, but you find out that she's been asleep for 57 years and she was basically trying to make it to her daughter's birthday, but her daughter's like way older than her now. Yeah, so you get like a little early inception moment.
Yeah, and it's just like the whole idea of like everyone that you ever knew in your life as an adult is probably dead. Like they're gone. Right. Your life is totally different, and you woke up and went to sleep, and your life completely changed.
Yeah. So Ripley, I got to say this: Ripley's life sucks. Her life is go to sleep, go to this planet. LV 426 is what they call it. Fight aliens, go to sleep, wake up, fight
pretty
aliens.
Much.
Every time she's woken up from a nap, she's got to fight aliens, basically.
Well, in between that, she has to talk to them for 3.5 hours and explain what happened.
And they don't believe her, right?
Earlier.
That's right, Mark.
Yeah,
they don't believe her. And that's the whole corporate angle of this, which is basically they're like piecing together her story, like what happened to the Nostromo, where is the ship, the fact that they blew the ship up, she's on the escape pod, whatever. She's basically defending her actions, which we saw in the first movie. And you're like, totally defensible. She did it. This is exactly what you would do to survive. Her whole crew gets slaughtered. Like, she's going to do whatever. And they're like, oh, that was like a multi-million-dollar piece of equipment. She's like, I don't give a fuck. Like, she literally says, are you people not listening? Because the next step is we find out that the planet LV-426, that's the original planet that the Nostromo landed on, where they were infected by the xenomorph. In the subsequent 57 years, that planet has been colonized and there have been people living there. And so they're like, what's the big deal? Like, people live here. It's not a problem. And she's like, are you guys out of your minds? This thing will never stop. It has acid for blood. It's going to kill all of us. It killed my entire crew. I barely made it out. And you're there on the planet now. You've been there. And they're like, yeah, no big deal. And they're like, oh, except we haven't heard from any of the colonists in a while. So maybe it's not so great.
Right. They say we lost contact with the colonists. She's like, yeah, dummies. That's
right.
What
I know
said.
This planet. That's where the thing is. So that's when we get them saying, hey, we're going to send this platoon of Marines there. They deal with these issues. So we kind of we don't really know, because they're like, is it going to be another bug hunt? So you kind of think like, oh, aliens exist, but the xenomorph, no one's ever seen it but Ripley.
Right. They allude to the fact that they've killed bugs or aliens in the past.
Right. And so they basically are like, she goes to work. Side note, Greg, I like dead tech in movies a lot. So like her like apartment, and like they're like 80s version of what they think the future is going to look like. I love that stuff. Right. I think it's so awesome.
Bro, that's like a glorified porta potty.
I love it. Dude.
It's like
I think it's so cool.
It's basically a double wide handicap.
It is it's kind of a dumb, but I like that they put it in these movies. Like that's part of the reason probably why I love Star Trek, Blade Runner, like those, like the airlock doors that are sliding, they look very like futuristic, I like that stuff a lot. So you're in her apartment, and Paul Reiser basically comes to her apartment, and she's taking a job as like a blue collar worker. She's like loading stuff on a dock somewhere, a space dock. And he's like, listen, I'll get you reinstated as a flight commander, and they're going to pay you if you go on this trip with the Marines as like Weyland-Yutani's ambassador, like advisor to LV-426, the planet that you were on, that the xenomorph came and killed everybody. And she's like, well, all right, I guess I'll do it. I got nothing else, right? I got nothing else. Dumb. But I mean, you're like, well, she's going with a squad of Marines. Like, well, I mean, whatever. They're going to be heavily armed. This shouldn't be that big of a problem. And it is. But that's where we find out. That's where, I guess where are we here, Greg? I'm trying to look at this.
So that sets us up to basically, they send them back to this this LV-426. Yeah. Ripley agrees to go along with the platoon of Marines, and they all get put in these little sleep pods because it's a long flight. Side note, there's 12 of them total, 12 people going back. And it cost them like a few $1,000s to make each pod. So they only had 6 of them made. And what they did is they just used mirrors.
No shit.
If you look at the movie, if you watch it, you can see the mirrors. But now that you know, sorry, busted the movie magic. But you'll be able to see that it's like doubled up. Cool. And it's like uniform. But I mean, it holds up.
I had no idea. I've seen this movie a dozen times.
Never would have thought. You would have thought that they built, because you see all these pods opening up, and you start to see people start to get out of the pods, and they've got this sergeant
Apone,
Sergeant Apone. This is such a stupid part of the movie. It opens up, and the second it opens up,
I know what
he
you're gonna say.
like busts out a cigar.
Yeah. Immediately like puts it in his mouth.
He's like, oh, bro, I've been craving a cigar since I've been asleep.
Dude, did you see? I saw some pretty awesome trivia about him. Did you see this?
But he was an actual. I think he was an actual Marine
he's the
or
first
sergeant.
African American Marine to be awarded Master Sergeant in the field in Vietnam. First ever.
He's
Shout
done
out Al Williams.
Yeah, he's done quite a few movies.
Al Matthews, yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah. Hey, I was telling Mark about this. In this movie, he's like screaming, barking orders. Do you remember? And I feel like this is a little bit of an underrated movie. Last Action Hero. Do you remember his boss that's like yelling and you can't understand a word he's saying?
Yeah. That's very good.
This is what he feels like.
He is just like stream of consciousness, like, come on, ladies, get out there, double time. Like he's doing a lot of that shit. And you're like, okay, he's a Marine. I mean, all right. He's a drill sergeant.
Yeah, it's funny. He's like screaming at him, like, "Double time, go, make it happen. Just gotta chop."
That's right.
And then they get inside this APC later, and he's all like, "All right, calm down." He's all, bro. It's like you had a puppy and you got them all riled up with the ball, and then you're trying to tell them to sit down.
Yeah, but it's a good way to introduce all of them, right? Because they're all kind of coming out of this hypersleep, and they're all getting like they eat right away, and they're kind of like gearing up, and they're like, all right, we're gonna go down and see where these colonists are. Let's land on this planet, basically. I mean, like we're in it.
Right. They real quick, you mentioned how they saw that Ripley was using that loader. It's like a mech loader, and this is kind of like a little nod of what's to come because they show her using it, and they're all like super impressed that basically she knows how to use a forklift.
So let's describe that real quick, because you're right. She, at one point, they're like loading stuff up and they're gearing up, getting all their equipment. And she's like, hey, I feel like I'm kind of like, what did she say? A fifth wheel here. Is there something I can do? And they're like, I don't know. What can you do? She's like, well, I can use that mech loader. And the mech loader.
She's like, I've got mech loader certification.
Right. And that's it's cool how they do it, because it's like, that to me is just like you were saying, it's just like a forklift, but it's like a complex piece of equipment that you would have to know. You couldn't just like jump in and do it. But it looks like what's the other, not the Transformers, Greg. There was like a knockoff Transformers.
Voltron?
No, I think Voltron was when all the Transformers got together. There was like a Thundercats, maybe?
No.
There was like another
Are you
thing.
Thinking about... You talking about the anime?
No, it was a kids thing. It was in our era. Somebody is gonna know and hit us up. But there was like another version of Transformers that made me think of the mech loader, because basically what it is like you stand in it, and I don't know, it looks like it's 10 feet tall probably, but it's like you have like legs. You're like standing in this machine that is like has 4 limbs and can do different things. So like one of the 2 arms you're kind of controlling, and they have like hooks on them or clamps, like a plier type of application. There's like a welding thing, like a blowtorch. Pretty fucking cool. Very, very cool. Again, something we don't have now, and I don't know why.
There's a cool shot when she's getting inside that mech loader, and you see a shot of her Reeboks, her sneakers.
Yeah. The Stompers is what they're called, the alien Stompers. They really made those.
Yeah, they really made those.
Greg, did you buy them?
No, that was only for the shirt.
Oh, shit.
You couldn't buy the sneakers. I would have bought them, but I think this kind of predated sneakerheads, because I don't think being a sneakerhead really took off until like the 90s. So, but people that bought those were fans of the movie, and anyone that still has those, they're worth pretty penny right now.
They're awesome.
But they're just like Reeboks with instead of laces, they've got Velcro on them.
They look cool.
So, I got to also add this in this movie. So we've got Vasquez, we've got Ripley. Bras don't exist in space. There are no bras on any of them.
We can leave that there, but you're right, there aren't.
Yeah. Anyway, so this gets us up to speed with the Cybertruck.
Oh yeah.
The alpha version of the Cybertruck.
It makes an appearance.
Yeah, the Cybertruck. And I believe this was actually I don't even know what the proper terminology is for it, but it's one of those things that airplanes latch onto and get taxied around on the
Yeah,
runway.
that's what it looks like.
It's like this big flat vehicle. And so they took that and they reconstructed it to make it like this marine utility
It's cool.
vehicle.
It looks really cool.
Yeah. And it's funny. There's a scene where they're like getting ready to like land on the planet or whatever, and Paxton's line is, "This is an express elevator to hell going down."
Also ad-libbed, apparently.
Ad-libbed. He basically came across as like this weird surfer character. Right. He's from Fort Worth. He's from Texas.
Of course he is. So we're going in, basically.
Yeah.
We can't find these colonists, and they're like, they land and they're like, we're going to look for them in this like installation. Apparently there's like a air purifier that they've set up where that's supposed to scrub the air so that it can be breathed by human beings. And they're going to go to this installment and try and find colonists that live there because they have had no contact. And so we're off. Right. We're going on patrol, basically.
Yeah. They end up going searching for the lost colonists, and they end up riding in their alpha version of the Cybertruck, and they go to, basically what they find is this hall where it was obviously welded shut, and it was the last stand for the survivors. And they're like going around. They've got this real crappy, like, Atari version of a tracking device. Mm-hmm. It's like detects, I don't know, living beings or something. Like, it's supposed to beep at you when they're coming closer and tells you like how many meters away they are. But anyways, they find some melted steel, and they search around some more. They find some face huggers in the labs.
In formaldehyde like jugs. Disgusting.
Right. Yeah. And a few of them are dead, but a couple of them are alive. They like kind of twitch and like scare you. So you're like, oh, 2 of them are alive. And they keep searching around. Then they find that this feral child running around, and they almost shoot her.
Yeah, they blast at her.
Yeah. The actress is Carrie Henn. I don't think she's done anything else. I believe she's basically only done alien movies. As far as the research I found is that she never actually wanted to be in movies. She just wanted to. She wanted to be a teacher. She got roped into the role somehow.
She's good. I think she's good.
Yeah, so Ripley saves her and starts like wiping her down with like that dry ass towel, and she's like all dirty, and she's like cleaning her up. It's like, I'm gonna keep you, you're mine now. Then they find when they start tracking all the colonists, they find that they're all huddled together somewhere, and one of the guys goes like, it's like they're in a town meeting, and they're under like one of the reactors or something. And so
and this is like
they have to
this
go
is
get
like
them.
Great stuff here. This 15 minutes or so is really good because we as the audience know like what the melted steel means. There's all these holes in the grating and like the stairwells because it's the acid, saliva, and blood from the xenomorphs. We've seen it already. We know that it can burn through this stuff. So we're like, oh shit, this is bad. The Marines don't really know yet. And we're getting this like cross shooting where Cameron sometimes is on patrol with the Marines. He's also back in the vehicle with Gorman, who's like the very green younger lieutenant who they don't like, and Ripley, and he's like barking out orders. Oh, go down here, go down this hallway. And so we're kind of cutting back and forth, and we also have cameras that are attached to the Marines. And sometimes we get the view of the camera, which is, again, like we were talking about earlier, it's never like a clear view, but it helps add to the paranoia and the tension because you're like, oh man, like I can't see this stuff clearly. Like, I don't know where they're at. It's dark. They're talking to each other. The beeping is increasing because they're getting closer to stuff. All of this is like ratcheting up the tension, ratcheting. And that's when you get to the nest, really. You get down to the nest, which is like, oh, fuck.
Right. And so they're down there, and basically they they realize that they're creeping up on the colonists, and Ripley and Gorman are on the APC or whatever, and they realize, hey, they're under the reactor. They can't shoot bullets there because this could destroy the entire reactor. This could explode everything. And Gorman's like freaking out because he's dumb.
He's terrible.
So basically, he's horrible. So he like radios them, and he's like, he tells the sergeant, hey, I need you to collect the magazines from everybody. Flamethrowers only, no bullets.
Which is not great.
Which I love that scene. And like you said, like the next 15 minutes or so of the movie, I think is probably some of the best stuff we get in the whole movie.
Yeah.
It's so
because
good.
they find one person, right?
Right.
And she's like strung up in this like goo, like this frozen like rubber cement basically that's like strapped her to this post. And you're like, oh, she's dead. And then she opens her eyes and she's like, kill me. And you're like, fuck, what is going on here? And so then we get,
and then
well, go ahead.
The chest burster. Yeah, we start to see the chest expand, and we already know that from the first Alien movie what's going to happen. So we get the chest burster scene, and then they start flamethrowering.
I think drop the ER. I think it's flame throwing.
Flamethrowing all the aliens there, and they start to freak out because their little tracking device is detecting that they're all around, that they're coming closer, but they can't see them on infrared. And they're freaking out, and then all of a sudden, all hell breaks loose.
There's one scene I really like here. So, the set is like the nest itself is like there's all this stuff. I don't even know what it is, but like it looks like glue that's like covering everything. It's covering the floor. It's like covering the doorways, the walkways. And there's one part where there's this poor Marine that we don't know. She's walking up, and there's a xenomorph head that you can tell when you've seen the movie more than once. Like the impression of it is behind her, and then it turns and comes off the wall onto her, and you're like, fuck, and it grabs her. And that's when shit starts going haywire. And this is where you get the chaos, right? Sometimes the Cameron goes back to Gorman in the APC. He's like, where's everybody? Apone, what's going on? And he's fucking losing his mind because he's horrible. He's a terrible leader. He's like screaming on the mic. They're screaming. You hear the combat in the background. Sometimes you see the camera shots. So it's like, it's just such a good job of like, okay, I have to hide the fact that I'm using real people as the xenomorphs. But I also am going to enhance the terror because I'm going to make it so chaotic and confusing and all this noise and people are talking and the camera and different shots, and it's masterful like action terror work. And then you start to get them pulling out because they're starting to lose. They're taking casualties here.
Right. That whole scene reminds me of, do you remember in Independence Day when they're like sending the jets to go fight the aliens? And you've got them on the screen, and you just start seeing like jets getting ticked off. Like that's the exact same thing as this, but this obviously this precedes that. And so it you see like cameras start cutting off. You start realizing, hey, we got people dying. You get someone on fire, like flying over a banister.
Yeah.
You could rewatch that scene alone multiple times and see stuff different that you didn't see before. It's great.
Well,
it's
and the
awesome.
thing that you get to the point where Gorman is like paralyzed. He's not even in combat. Oh, he's just on the microphone. He's like, and that's when Sigourney, Ripley's like, get him out, pull him, tell him to pull back. And he can't even, he's like catatonic. So she's like, fuck this. She gets behind the wheel and she's going to drive the APC into the complex to get him back, which is sick.
So this is Ripley just being hard ass. I'm going to go save everybody's ass. She goes in there. And so she starts extracting everyone. Man, we get one of my favorite scenes in this movie. She's getting everyone into the APC. And at the last second, an alien tries to get in the door. And so they put a
Hicks, baby. It's Hicks.
Favorite kill. Yes. Hicks puts a shotgun right into the alien's mouth and blast. It was so, I can't emphasize this enough that it was so accurate because we know that the aliens have blood. The first time I saw this, I was like, dude, you're going to get acid blood all over you. And he does. Like, he blasts it and like acid comes flying back onto him and they have to like take off their clothes really quick. It's cool.
It's cool.
And basically, their staff sergeant's dead, and now they're trying to figure out like what's the next step. What do we do?
Yeah.
Ripley's like, well, Hicks is the next in line in command.
Because Gorman gets knocked out. He bumps his head. Like, oh, Jesus. All right.
God,
so
this guy sucks.
But yeah, then I think she's basically like, so first thing, I got something to say about the shootout, but then I want to move the plot a little bit.
Yeah.
So she's like, we need to fucking leave. These colonists are dead. What are we doing here? Our platoon has been cut in half. Let's get on the ship, fly, and nuke this planet. And that's where you get the first little creeping thing of Weyland-Yutani, Paul Reiser, being like, well, I don't know.
Well,
maybe we shouldn't do that. It's like, dude. Yeah, he's like haggling a little bit. And so he kind of pushes back. He's like, that, this is like an expensive mining operation and all this bullshit. And she's like, I don't care. She's like, she goes, they can bill me, which is great.
That's a good line.
And that's when she goes, well, look, at this point, this is a military operation, Burke. Burke is Paul Reiser's character. She's like, you don't have any, authority jurisdiction here to tell us what to do. The next person in line, now that Gorman bonked his head, is Hicks, which is Michael Biehn. And he's like, yeah, we should just nuke this fucking place.
He says exactly what Ripley says to do, like almost verbatim.
Well, the point I wanted to make here is, if you've watched the movie Alien and you've watched the first, you're watching along in this movie, you have not seen the aliens. They only are killing. They're really scary.
Right.
They're vile, disgusting things, right? They have this huge elongated head. They're all black and shiny and dripping with the saliva.
They're like roaches.
Yes, this huge teeth. They're disgusting. They have terrorized you as a moviegoer. This is the time when you're like, we're getting some payback here. We're blowing them up a little bit. Yes, we're taking some losses. We're shooting them with shotguns in the face. Like, this is good. This is what I like about this movie, is I want some retribution, Greg. I've been scared of these aliens. Can I get somebody to kill some aliens, please? And they're finally doing it.
Right. So the nice thing is that in the first one, you only had one alien. So you can't just like kill it right away and be done with it, because then what are you going to do with the rest of the movie? Right. But this one, you got some fodder. And so
mowing them down.
You got a lot to kill. The other movie that kind of lifted this idea, and it's a lot of fun, Starship Troopers.
Yes. Great movie.
I love
such
that
a great
movie.
commentary.
Yeah.
Yes, excellent movie. So we basically get, I think now we get to
the ship. They're like trying to evac, and they call for the evac ship, but one of the aliens like snuck on board and basically kills the pilot. And you see the alien kind of kill the pilot, blood splatter across the window.
That scene is great, dude. So let's talk about that scene.
That scene's awesome.
They get out of the APC because they're like, bring in, so what they've done is their main ship is in the atmosphere. They take like a little bird down. The bird lands.
Mm-hmm.
They get in the APC, drive from the bird to the installment. Now they're at the installation and they're like, okay, let's get the fuck out of here. They drive the APC out. It's all fucked up because they've wrecked into stuff and they've been fighting the aliens. And they're like, call the bird, and it's going to pick us up and take us back to the main ship. So they get out. They're out on the planet. They throw a flare down, and you are with them, and you see the bird come. They're like, okay, she's almost here. And then it cuts back to the xenomorph killing the pilot, which is fucking scary. And then you go back to the Marine's perspective on land, and you see the bird like, and it explodes, and you're like, oh man.
they just watch it crash. It was like, okay, I just got to point this out. Imagine being those Marines on this island for a second, or on this planet, and seeing your evac ship
Not
crash. Great. I mean, Bill Paxton's first line is "Game over, man."
Famous line. That's right. We just got our asses kicked, and he's doing that. Game over, and it's because, like, yeah, you're right. Like, what? Now we're like really screwed.
We get another famous line. Like these two lines are like back to back. We get "Game over, man," and then we get the little girl. Her name's Newt, the little feral child they rescue. She says the line, "They mostly come at night."
She's like, "We better get inside."
Mostly.
Because they come at night mostly, and that's fucking scary.
But the way that she says it, like they make T-shirts of just that phrase.
What do you got on your T-shirt?
I have my shirt says, "In space,
no one can hear you scream." I think that's a tagline for the original,
that's
right?
That's a tagline for the original.
Tagline. Maybe one of the best ever.
Yeah. So there's another real cool scene that happens here, and I love this. It's like it's not needed. You don't need to do this, but it makes it so fun. They take inventory of their weapons and ammo.
Love these. Dude, here's the thing, Greg. If you're going to do inventory and you're going to do a load up, like get ready for battle, which this has both,
right?
What more? Yes. I can't ask for anything else. I'm satisfied.
There's so many things that this movie does that other movies have lifted, and we've talked about a few of them already. But that part where they start taking inventory of their ammo, the Dawn of the Dead remake, they do the exact same thing.
It's like every third action movie they do this. We got 48 shotgun shells.
How many rounds?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And they're it's not even a montage, so
it's not. It's just right there. That's right? So basically at this point, Ripley takes over and starts giving orders. And they decide that they're going to go seal off an area, and they need to wait, I think 17 days for some reason is what they're saying.
Yeah. So she's like, how long before, when they notice that we haven't checked in, will they send like a rescue patrol? And that's when they're like 17 days, which is a weird number, but also that's a long fucking time, because they're basically going to have to stay. Because that plane crashed, they have to retreat back to part of that installation, the lab installation, which they know is already overrun. It's like not great here.
And then this is where we find out that Burke is like real skeezy company.
Yes.
Man. He basically says that they want to bring back those face huggers because it's going to be worth millions.
It's clear that they want the Weyland-Yutani Corporation like wants to experiment with them and do stuff with them and maybe use them as weapons, whatever. And not great.
So the android Bishop, he offers to get to an antenna to call in, to repair it and call in the evac earlier than 17 days.
Yeah. Did you notice that scene, Greg, so they're like, he has to crawl through this tunnel, this pipe. Right. Like 40 kilometers or something. I don't know. That seems like really far away. Maybe less than that. I don't know. That seems like impossible. But he's a robot. I don't know. They cut a hole in the pipe. But did you notice?
Don't dismiss the things that androids can do.
Did you notice that they're like they give him some stuff, and Vasquez hands him a pistol. And he like looks at it and he like gives it back. Like, I don't want this.
He's like, what am I supposed to do with this? Look, man, if I was going to fight an alien, and someone handed me a pistol, the only thing I'm using that pistol for is to kill myself.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. If I get like a face hugger on me, it's like, well, I'm dead. I don't want to go through this. I'm just going to kill myself, because you're not killing a xenomorph with a pistol.
So, okay. Now we get to the face huggers stuff in the lab, correct?
We do. There's a little scene right before this where Hicks teaches Ripley how to use a gun.
A little flirting here, a little like sexual chemistry here, Greg.
I was gonna say yes. I was gonna ask you if you picked up on that, if that's what you saw as well. Like I was like, are they? That. I was like, get a room.
Very clear that Hicks is definitely impressed by Ripley's ability to be like in control, like can handle herself. That comes off well.
Oh.
And Sigourney Weaver is a beautiful woman at this point. So it's like, oh,
Yeah.
one thing we got to rewind here. Maybe I should save this for later. Did you notice that she gets a haircut?
Yeah, her
Right,
hair
they don't do
changes
it-
right
yeah,
around this
yeah.
point.
Like,
I don't know what they didn't. Maybe they just, I don't know, just continuity. But especially in the beginning too. The beginning of the movie, her hair is like past her shoulders. It's long, and then it's shorter. I don't know if that was supposed to show like time or she's coming back, and that was like part of the hypersleep. I don't know, but I did notice that this time. I was like, huh, okay.
Her hair is different lengths
Yes.
through the movie. She got a Mima cut. It's like this real like curly like.
I hate me cut so much.
Well,
I don't like that.
well, we do get. She gets a crash course quickly how to use the pulse rifle, right? Which is good because she's going to use it later. So it's good that they set that up. However, she goes to nap with Newt in the lab and doesn't take the rifle, leaves it out.
No, she sets it on the bed above her.
Oh, so we think Burke took it out?
So she sets it on the bed on top, and then she lays under there with Newt because Newt's sleeping under the bed. And then she wakes up because she hears a noise.
Right.
And the camera pans, and you can see that the rifle's outside the room now.
Burke, you're thinking Burke has removed the rifle. Oh,
yeah. Fucker. And so Burke like went in there because he knew that Ripley was going to be a problem for his plan, and he let the face huggers loose in the room.
Yeah, because there's two. We remember there are two face huggers alive. So let's talk about face hugger really quick. It's fucking gross.
Sure.
It might be worse it's fucking worse than the xenomorph, I think.
Agreed. And I believe the new movie Romulus plays heavily into the face huggers.
Yeah, I think so too. So what do they look like? Describe them for our audience, Greg, if someone hasn't seen this movie or these movies.
Looks like a son of a bitch with it's like, okay, so I'm gonna do my best to describe it. All right. Imagine, if you will, and Mark, if you want, you can add these animals onto the screen here so our viewers and listeners can see this. If you had an octopus that had sex with a scorpion that had
it's pretty good.
ant legs and let's see, like a squid mouth
with a snake tail.
Yeah. That's great. Yeah. And spider legs.
They're disgusting, but they're not that big. They're like the size of a dinner plate. They have these they look like fingers, and then they have a tail.
Yeah.
And what ends up happening is the tail, they jump on you, they attach to your face, they shoot the embryo into you, down your mouth, because it needs to gestate in you. That's how it becomes a xenomorph. And while it's doing that, it wraps its tail around your neck and throat and arteries there and chokes you unconscious, basically.
I thought about this. I was like, couldn't you just clench your teeth and then it can't get in your mouth?
Probably, but they look just so gross. I don't know how that works. You're right. Okay, so we're in the lab and she hears a noise and she looks and sees that one of the containers are broken.
And they scuttle.
Yeah, yes, that's the thing. This is such a great terror scene because they are in that she tries to get out. She grabs Newt. She's like, let's get the fuck out of here. The door's locked. She looks outside. Outside the glass door is her pulse rifle. So we know these things are like skittering and scuttling around. We can hear them and they can't get out. And you don't know where it is. And because you've seen it before, that they like leap on you in like a split second.
So I saw how they did this, the leaping piece.
How did and again, let's go back to this. Practical. This is so cool.
So it's all practical, but basically the way they did it is they filmed it in reverse, and then they started with the face hugger like on the counter, and then they pulled it off the counter, and then they filmed it. They played that in reverse, and so it gives it this feeling of jumping.
Sense.
Or like if it's on Ripley and she throws it,
it's like the backward version of it. Got it.
Correct. Then they play it backwards. And the crew was worried that there was like water on everything, that when you watch it, and if you watch it real closely, and you look at any of the drops, you'll see the drops going the opposite direction.
Oh, kind of like the mirrors with the pods.
I do have. I have one question for y'all.
Yeah.
How does Burke get? Like, how does he release them? Like, how is he releasing them and then leaving?
Great question.
That's a good question.
That's my first. It's like my first issue.
How would you do it?
I think I would die. I think I would tip. I would have released the face huggers, and then they would whoop, on top of my face.
Well, this plan didn't work.
I'm all shit. Sorry.
Yeah, they definitely made sure not to film that because you're right. I think it's tough. Yeah, because he had to remove her rifle, release these things, and then get out and lock the doors.
I bet you he threw his shoe at it.
The shoes. That would have been great if the shoes were in screen, like on.
And then Burke has no shoes on. They're like, "Hey, it's you." Good call. Good call out though, because there are some things about Burke that I'm like, okay. I mean, you buy it because he does other stuff later that you're like, well, yeah, it's him doing it. But for a second, I'm like, they jumped to that conclusion quickly, but they're correct. Anyway, the thing is loose. Two of them.
They're locked in there, and
the camera stuff is good.
This is the one.
That's when you're like, oh, it is fucking Burke.
Oh yeah. Because so they're locked in the room, and they're trying to get out of the room. The door is locked. They're trying to break the glass, but they can't break it with a chair. It's like plexiglass or something. And so then they start yelling at the monitor, the security camera, and you see Burke looking at it, and he goes boop boop and turns it off so no one can see them yelling.
That's a good scene because Ripley's on the screen like waving her arms and trying to like obviously catch the attention of anybody, and then Burke it cuts from this camera. It like goes back to Burke's face, and then he turns the camera off, and you're like, "Oh, motherfucker!"
Yeah, that dude sucks. So Ripley, being pretty smart, decides to take a lighter and waves it on the smoke detector or something, and sets off the sprinkler system, and that alerts all the Marines.
But
they run
think it's
over
a
there,
fire.
and
they're like, "They got a fire."
They run over there. Yeah, and they grab fire extinguishers on the way too. And they run over there, and they realize that Ripley's trapped in there. They shoot the glass.
Hold on, dude.
And
they shoot. How about this though? They shoot the glass.
Yeah,
and then fucking Hicks dives into it.
Yeah,
awesome.
He's like, he's after his woman, man. Yeah. And so they dive in there, and at this point, they've got a face hugger like attacking Ripley, and they all like it takes probably like 3 or 4 dudes to get this face hugger off of her. And then they blast it. They killed both of them.
And Newt does a good job here because there's one like crawling up this table that's against a wall, and she shoves it into the wall so that its tail gets stuck. And that's when when Hudson, Bill Paxton, redeems himself a little bit here because he runs over, he grabs Newt, and he like hoses this thing down, which is great. Yeah.
Cool scene. This whole moment is cool. Anyways, so they basically realize that it was Burke, and they call him dog meat. They're basically going to kill him, or they turn on him. They realize what he's doing, but at this point, we start to get the little tracking device that picks up that there's aliens coming towards them, and there's a lot of them. Like you see on the screen, like a dot represents an alien, and the screen's just covered
like blobs.
Blobs of dots coming towards the room. They're like, they're coming after us. They're like, weld the door shut. They weld the door shut.
Okay, let me ask you guys something real quick. These welding tools, they're like acetylene.
Aren't they crazy?
Are they? Am I just not experienced with welding? And you can do that because it's so cool.
Okay, so there are different kinds of welding, but I believe that the ones they're using in this, there's no way you could weld.
Like it's in like an acetylene torch. They're like, because they weld the door shut, but then they also cut through the lock. Remember later, and then they cut through the grates in the floor. I'm like, this is the fucking best tool that's ever been made.
It would be like a plasma gun, and
you can get this at Lowe's, I guess.
We'll assume welding has has evolved
Okay.
Also,
over the years.
Also, Marines are trained
Yeah,
in
you're
it.
right. Yeah.
Damn
Yeah.
right.
Okay, so
We get the aliens creeping up on
yeah,
them, and we see the meters, how many meters away they are. And it's all like they're 15 meters, they're 12 meters, they're 10 meters, they're 8 meters. At this point, they're like 8 meters. They'd be in the room if they were 8 meters away. Yeah. And so at this point,
great scene, dude.
Hicks he gets a boost and he lifts the ceiling tile, and you just see like a huge chunk of xenomorphs crawling in the ceiling towards the room. At that point, he drops down and all hell breaks loose. It's just all out war. Yeah, and you get the xenomorphs getting like blown up, and we lose some more people, and Burke, that slimy, you know who Burke reminds me of? That dude in Jurassic Park, the fat dude that gets blasted with the tar in his face.
Yeah. That's good.
Do you know what I'm talking about? He's the one trying to sneak out all the samples inside the Cool Whip or shaving cream or whatever. Newman from Seinfeld. Newman.
That's right.
Newman basically, Burke, he runs off, he slams the door shut and locks him in, and he's trying to get away. And so they're going crazy or whatever. All right, so
Vasquez is kicking ass, but Hudson gets grabbed.
Vasquez is kicking ass.
Hudson gets grabbed. He's dead.
Yeah. Hudson, R.I.P. Bill Paxton.
Hudson gets waxed.
So Burke is in the room, and one of those xenomorphs comes in from the backside, and the short of it is the xenomorph kills him, but he kills him in a cool way. Like, it opens its mouth, and then like that extra little, like a xenomorph's got a mouth within its mouth.
Right.
So he opens its mouth, and then its like tongue mouth comes out, and like it doesn't really show it, but we just assume.
Yeah.
So there's actually there was a different way that Burke was supposed to die. Originally, they didn't show him dying like that. We just assumed that he gets taken, and this was a deleted scene. Later on in the movie, we see Ripley like walking through all the cocoons, and she finds Burke.
Oh, really?
And he's like cocooned, and he's like saying, I think he's like saying, "Help me," because he's got like he's stuck on the wall, and Ripley just hands him a grenade and walks off.
Shit, that's kind of dope.
Yeah,
that's kind of hard.
Yeah. I was like, man, that would have been such a cool way to kill him.
I kind of wish they had gone with that.
Just be like, that would have been a cooler death,
for
right?
Sure. Because everybody gets like, the alien mouth snapping on them.
Right.
Felt more deserved.
So then we get Newt, like they get backed into a corner. Newt kicks open an air vent, and then they all start running into the air vents together to escape.
Yeah, because she's got all this experience with the facility, because that's how she's survived, like through these vents and duct work and everything like that. So they're like, let's go. And this is a great battle.
Yeah. Oh man, this is cool. So they're fighting in the air vents, they're shooting. It's a huge shootout there, and then Vasquez pops one in the head and gets covered in acid. Vasquez gets covered in acid, and
but she's got a pistol. She's down. Her rifle's empty, so she throws it down. She's just got her sidearm, and the xenomorph like comes down on her through like a vent that's above her. She like moves, kicks it against the wall, like pins it with her feet, and then shoots it in the head. Fucking awesome.
And she gets all the acid all over her legs. And so
she's a warrior.
At this point, Gorman like grabs her and starts dragging her off to save her.
Gorman comes back around because he's been pretty weak, but he goes back because now Vasquez was like defending the rear, and he has to go. He realizes that she's not with the group, and so he goes back to get her, and that's when he takes a couple down, pistol.
Yeah, and then they take off. He's dragging her through the air vents, and then they realize that they're getting boxed in by all the xenomorphs. They're both out of ammo. And so they pull out a grenade. She arms it, and then they both grab it together.
Pretty sick.
Double suicide.
You got to do it, man. Go out on your shield here.
It's It's a
hard.
cool ending. It's yeah. So at this point, basically Hicks and Ripley are the only adults left. It's Hicks, Ripley, and then Bishop, obviously the android. He's somewhere, but he's not with them. And they're basically trying to navigate through these air vents, and Newt falls down one of the air vents
because of the explosion.
Because of the explosion, yeah. And so they go down there to find her, and she's underneath like a metal grate. And at this point, they're trying to use that torch to cut through the metal grate so they can get Newt. But as they're doing it, the little shitty alien detector detects like they're all still coming. They're like feet away from her. You get a really cool scene here. It's such a cool shot. It's Newt standing in the water, and you just see the xenomorph rise from the water and come all the way up. Like slow motion coming up behind her. And we don't see it kill her, but then we just hear Ripley yelling. They finally get down into the sewer that she was hiding in, and all that's left behind is like her little doll, and she's gone.
And that's when Ripley's like, no. And Hicks has got to like drag her back. He's like, she's gone.
And then they realize that they can track her through her little Apple Watch.
And that's when they find out that there's enough time to get the bird down, the second bird. They're like 20. Right. Bishop's like, there's 26 minutes left before we're going to get the fuck out of here.
So they find an elevator. They jump in it. The aliens are trying to get them. The alien holds the elevator door open. Please hold. And Hicks blasts them. He gets acid all over his chest armor. He has to like take it off as fast as possible. And then they show it like within like seconds that it burned a hole through it. And this is a cool scene. And I remember this when I was watching this as a kid, and this is something that stuck out to me. Ripley tapes a flamethrower together with her plasma rifle. So she's got like two guns like held together, like she's made a sandwich of guns with duct tape. Man, is there anything duct tape can't do?
This is like, so we got the inventory scene earlier. This is like the arm up scene, which is sick.
Yeah. You could have played like the Terminator 2 music to this scene where she's like,
this is when, because she says they don't kill them. So she's like, we've got time. Newt's not dead. They don't kill them. They're going to incubate her.
Right. So, basically,
she puts on the grenades.
Bishop tells,
she tapes the guns together. She gets all the flares. She's like it's awesome. Great scene.
Yeah. And Bishop tells her, like, in 19 minutes, this place is going to be a cloud of vapor the size of Nebraska.
Yeah.
Like, of all the hyperbole, why do we describe it as Nebraska? Nobody thinks of Nebraska as being a big place.
It's a very square, flat state. Maybe that's why.
I guess it's going to be a big square explosion, y'all. All right, so Ripley starts tracking Newt. And then basically she finds the Queen alien, which this is a new thing. We hadn't seen a Queen before.
We gotta dramatize this a little bit. So she goes back to the nest.
Amp it up.
Which is fucking scary because the last time we were there, two squads of Marines got wasted. She's by herself.
She's got a double gun, Joe.
That doesn't help that much. But there's like steam everywhere, right? The alarm is going off.
Ripley.
The alarm's going off. Bonk, bonk, bonk. It's fucking scary, man. They're like, again, Cameron is great at like, and we talked about this in The Abyss. He does like overlapping tension.
There's multiple things that are causing problems. He throws lightning into the scene.
This electrical
For some
shit.
reason, there's lightning. We've got the alarm going off. We've got the countdown. We've got all these issues of imminent danger.
It's great. And she's like, before she goes into like a corridor or a hallway, she like hoses it down with the flamethrower. Very cool. Looks really cool. Would love to do it.
Clear the way. To do it. Joe's got this fantasy of clearing corridors with a flamethrower.
That's right. But you're right. Then she gets to the like lair. Yeah, the queen.
The Yeah. The one that's been laying the eggs. I love this nonverbal
Very good.
communication that happens between her and the
Yes.
queen. She gets there, and basically the xenomorphs start coming in from the
Yeah,
side
like
hallways.
those are like the bodyguards, I'm thinking. The 2 bodyguards.
Right. Yeah. And basically Ripley blasts the flamethrower to the side, and it's almost like she goes, you know what this is, you know what this does. Call off your goons. And so the queen like kind of tells the goons in so many, like whatever she does, to back off, and the goons go back into their little holes. They're like, okay, sorry for bothering you.
Yeah, they do. But there's eggs everywhere, right? And these eggs are what the face huggers burst out of.
What are those eggs called, Joe?
Oh,
do you know?
They're called, I do know. Hang on. I octo something.
Yeah, but basically, Ripley's like completely surrounded by the eggs that the face huggers come from.
Ovomorphs.
Ovomorph. Yeah, there's a ton
But they
of
look like
ovomorph.
meatballs.
They kind of do. They kind of do. They're disgusting looking,
Yeah.
and they like fold open, and the face hugger jumps out of that. And they're there's like dozens of them, and then they show this like big tube connected to the queen, and there's a bunch of those fucking things in there, which is again like revolting.
She's just like cranking them out. So she gets Newt, and she starts backing out, and then at this point Ripley goes like full exposure therapy and just starts flaming all the eggs.
This is my favorite scene.
Just like lights them all on fire. The queen's like screaming, freaking out.
She's like
detaches,
raging, like blasting grenades, hosing it down with the plasma rifle, burning everything, and they cut to her face, and she's like raging. It's tight. It's hard.
Yeah. And so she's leaving. She basically runs to the elevator. She jumps in the elevator, and the song from Pink plays, I'm Coming Up. And she like gets on out of there. And then she gets to the landing deck, and Bishop's not there.
Well, hold on, Greg. I caught something here that I had not caught before. Okay.
Go on.
So, a couple things. First of all, the queen detaches herself from her birthing canal.
Right.
Disgusting. Fucking gross.
Great word.
And so you're like, oh, she's coming after her. And she is. She's, first of all, the queen is huge. And she has like this this like helmet, headdress looking thing. So she's like way more distinctive than the others, xenomorphs. Double scary. And okay, so Ripley's like got Newt. She's already like burned a bunch of shit. She's out of ammo, and she's hitting all the did you notice that she hits the first elevator button, and the elevator's like moving like at normal pace, and she hits the elevator a bunch, all the panels, which if you've ever been in a building with an elevator, does that work, Greg? Doesn't work.
Listen, if I'm ever in an elevator with someone I don't like, before I get off, I'm going to hit all the buttons.
That's right. But what it did in this, I didn't pick this up until I saw it this time. She gets on the elevator, but you can tell they cut back to the queen looking at the elevator, because the queen realizes, oh, there's another elevator that she called the second elevator because she hit all the buttons. That's how the queen gets up to the top, which I didn't.
Yeah,
she gets in it.
Yeah, she gets in. She gets in a second elevator,
but it's the one that Ripley called because she was hitting all the buttons, which I didn't fucking put together until just now.
Right,
but you're right. Bishop's not there.
So she gets onto the landing deck. Bishop's not there, and then at the very last second, Bishop lands, and they get on board, and they kind of fly off, and hooray!
Right.
Yay! Happy ending, right, Joe?
We're away.
That's
the installment's going to blow up. That we made it safely.
Yeah. So that's a really great ending to the movie. So what podcast are we doing next week, Joe?
Not so fast, Greg.
Go on.
Well,
did I miss something?
Yeah, I mean, if you've watched these movies, you know that the aliens are smart. They can hide on stuff, and they do. And so when we land back on the ship, what happens? But we're having a nice conversation, and then the fucking
Bishop,
the tail goes right through Bishop.
Oh,
the spear tail.
Boom.
And then
Man,
Queen picks him up. She's managed to hide herself on the ship, like in the landing gear. It looks like she picks him up,
yeah,
and rips him apart.
it's a cool scene.
It's fucking cool.
You see all that milky white yogurt or whatever. All right, I got a little factoid here about this. So that was like yogurt and milk and I don't know, some other gross stuff. But in this movie, because it was sitting under the hot lights, it developed some bacteria.
God.
And so Bishop, the actor that plays him, actually got food poisoning because he had to have that stuff in his mouth.
Oh my God.
Yeah, he got, and here's the crazy thing. In the first movie, it was the same milky white substance when the android gets killed in that. But they specifically didn't put it under lights and stuff because they were worried that that's exactly what would happen. And so they gave him like fresh milk and yogurt.
Cameron was
or
like, fuck it.
And so Cameron didn't get that memo. And
God damn
so, yeah, he got food poisoning
that's
from
terrible.
that.
Poor guy. Because he's not dead, though. Because he's an android, he's basically just like a severed torso.
Right. Yeah, it's just like a torso.
Like laying there.
And so at this point, Ripley runs off and
she's trying to distract the
queen.
To not fixate
Yeah, she's trying to distract the queen. Newt. The queen does fixate on Newt. And we get the hardest scene of the entire movie.
Go.
So we get like this bay door that opens, and then Ripley steps out in that mech loader, and she's like, she drops the best line of the whole movie.
Series.
The whole series out
this
of
is like
everything,
a top 50
in all the alien movies,
maybe top 25.
Yeah. It's up there, man. And it's so simple, but it's just so well delivered because she's like back again. And she's like, get away from her, you bitch.
Yeah. It's so good.
It's so good. Mark, if you could chop that part, that scene into here, because it's
really good.
I don't do it any service. So basically I got a question here. The Queen's bigger than a xenomorph
by a lot.
But by a lot. Do you think in hand-to-hand combat you could take a xenomorph in a fight?
I'll tell you what, I've thought about this. I mean, the short answer is no, Greg. But the strategy,
you have little faith.
The tail is what scares me. Because I want the back. But the tail, the whipping tail, which really gets deployed well by the Queen here. She whips the tail a bunch. That's pretty fucking scary. That's where I think, because you don't know where it's at, you know?
There's rules. She's not allowed to use the tail. How do we feel now?
I still don't know if I can
how
do
are we
it.
feeling
I don't know, man.
I don't know, man. I might try and. So you're saying you're like, I'm gonna arm drag the
Yeah,
xenomorph?
I mean, how else are you gonna do it, Greg? You got to get to the back. What are you gonna do? Try a heel hook a xenomorph? They don't care.
I don't know, man. You could probably triangle choke a
You gotta
xenomorph.
kill it. It's gonna bleed its acid all over your legs and crotch, burn right through you.
No, I'm not piercing its skin. I'm just choking it to death.
Your gi is acid proof.
Okay, well we're getting somewhere here.
So Joe's like, well, maybe I could Ezekiel choke a xenomorph.
That's right, with the sleeve.
Its head is so like, robust. Yeah. Maybe there's something you could do there where you kind of hop on.
If I guillotine a xenomorph, it's not getting its head out.
I don't know that you could guillotine, but you know what? I like the Ezekiel from like top 3/4 mount. If she's on her side, because the head would be pinned, kind of. You know, you got like a gift wrap grip. That's not bad. I don't know.
We're on to something
here. I'm looking at a very small neck, large head. So we're on to something.
The next week.
Right. Hey, real quick, I'm just curious. All the Marines, in regards to jiu-jitsu,
hold on. Let's close out the battle because I want to talk about the battle.
Okay.
And then we're going to go back.
Okay,
We're going to go
okay.
back to the
So-
Marines team because I got a whole thing for the Marines.
Okay, so anyways, back to the story at hand. We've got Ripley and the giant mech loader, and they do a cool ass fight scene. It's like Ripley's like even the playing
Yeah.
field because she's as big as the queen, and they're basically going toe to toe. There's a really cool moment here where they're like tied up and basically like a tie clinch of
Mhm.
some sort, and Ripley uses this little blowtorch
Hell
big
yeah.
lighter
Yeah,
to
that's great.
to burn the
Yeah, because she can.
xenomorph or
There's like a
the
control
queen.
panel, so she's like whacking the queen with the plier arms. She also like
Yeah.
grabs it between the two prongs a lot, which is good. But you're right. The queen gets close, and the mouth is coming out, the small mouth, and she turns on the thing. She like hits the control panel and turns the blowtorch on, which is
blowtorch.
awesome. She also controls
Yeah.
the airlock door, and that's
Yeah.
where she can control that, and then drags the queen over to throw her down. She does, but the queen grabs her with the tail,
Pulls her
whips her
down, with
down.
her. Yeah.
She ends up
The mech lands on top
Yeah.
of the queen, like basically pinning it
Right.
underneath her. And so she starts to crawl out of the mech because it's pinned under the mech, and she goes to open the airlock. I got a little issue with this part of the movie because she opens the airlock, and as she does, like the queen reaches up with her tail and like grabs Ripley's ankle.
I think it's with the queen's
Okay.
hand.
Oh, it's her hand.
Yes.
Yeah, she reaches up and she basically grabs Ripley's ankle, and then the airlock is open, and so everything is getting sucked in. I feel
it's
like
ripping Ripley.
I
in
don't think
half.
I don't think Ripley's strong enough to hang on to this
No.
ladder. with
But she
that
like
grip.
loops her arm
no.
like so where her like shoulder is in, and even then like you would
Yeah.
it would just rip your arm off. I think. I
Yeah,
agree.
yeah.
Yeah.
I don't think
And per Screen Rant, it looks like a xenomorph queen weighs around 3,500
Jesus
pounds.
Christ.
So if you're hoisted one arm deep into a ladder arm,
yeah.
3,500, you're getting
Plus
it's-
getting pulled by the force
Yeah.
of the airlock
You're
sucking
dead.
her
Yeah.
out.
you're
Hey.
you're
Yes.
split.
Like that's like saying, "Hey, I'm gonna attach this Toyota Camry to your ankle. I need you to
Pretty
hang
much,
on
yeah.
to it as it gets
Don't
sucked
dislocate your
out."
shoulder or have your leg ripped out.
Yeah.
Meanwhile,
yeah.
Newt is also sliding, being sucked down, and Bishop, the half disembodied torso,
Android.
of the synthetic
Yeah.
Bishop grabs her, which is cool. And so eventually she gets sucked down, and Ripley has to climb up. She closes the grate, closes it, and she's like, "Bishop, great job. You've redeemed yourself. You're not a piece of shit, even though you're half of a robot now."
Yep. And so,
Oh, this is where you get. We
Xenomorph
forgot
gets
the mommy
sucked
thing, though.
out. What happens?
Remember, after she saves her, she calls her. Newt has called Ripley the whole movie, and then she calls her mom.
Oh, I missed
Yeah.
that.
Pretty cool.
Oh, yeah. Little
Mhm.
nod at the end there. James Cameron movies are always like kind of centered around
Mhm.
family as well. There's always like some kind of family aspect
Yeah.
to his movies.
There's also a
Yeah,
part that we didn't
couple.
talk about much, but you did mention earlier about like Ripley's daughter in the first movie and everything. So this is
Right.
like a nod to that also of like she's like this maternal, like motherly figure.
Yes.
Very good stuff. And that's the movie. They go to hypersleep and it's over.
Yeah.
Jimmy Cameron, he does it again.
He did it again. That's the end. So this movie, wait, what was the part you were going to say about the Marines?
Jiu-Jitsu Corner? Okay. Let's introduce this segment,
Yeah.
Greg, because we talk about it like every week before the movie, and then we never do it. And we're
Right.
doing it here. This is our first Jiu-Jitsu
Yeah.
Corner.
Sure.
My thoughts, we talked about the Queen. How would you deal with that? We talked a little bit with Seagal about how we could, you'd kill Seagal, Greg. So I have a theory, and it's not locked down completely, not rock solid, but it's a middling theory that
Okay.
your personality directly influences your game, your jiu-jitsu game, and how
I
you
agree.
roll.
I agree
Okay.
wholeheartedly.
So I have broken down in my head the 4 main Marines that we interact with. Hicks,
Okay.
which is Michael Biehn, Hudson,
Hicks.
Bill Paxton,
Yep.
Gorman,
Yep.
and Vasquez.
Okay.
I'll tell you
where
my
you're going with
thoughts
this.
on their style, like how they would play. Okay.
All right. Go for it.
Which one? Give me one first. You pick.
Let's do Vasquez.
Is an extremely aggressive passer from outside.
Oh my
Headquarters
God!
passer.
Yes, I bet you Vasquez is a wrestler, and
See,
is
I think Hicks is a
spazzy.
wrestler.
I
think
all
Vasquez
right.
is like passing from headquarters, X pass, Toriando's, long stepping. She's like pass, over and over and over, just throwing stuff at you because she's like so hyperactive.
Right.
Okay. That's number one.
I agree with that. I think that she would be like, if she gets your back and chokes you, like, doesn't matter if it's clean or not, you're getting your teeth
eyebrows
smashed
down,
in that choke
for sure. Yep.
Yeah. All right.
Gorman taps to pressure.
you put him in side control and you're like, bro, I'm like, why didn't do anything? Why are you tapping out?
Gorman immediately taps to pressure.
Oh my God. That couldn't be that is so spot on. All right. So what about Hicks?
I think Hicks is like a high school wrestler who just comes forward all the time, trying for single legs. He never gets tired. His fundamentals are good as a wrestler, but you can probably submit him easier because he's so like hyper focused.
Okay.
The best.
I can see that. He's athletic.
Yes, he's strong and athletic. Exactly. High motor.
Yeah. He's got natural ability. Okay. And so that leaves our last one.
So Hudson to me is the guy that doesn't engage at all.
Oh my God.
He's either running out of bounds or he doesn't want to like commit to anything, whether it's a pass. He's like in and out, doesn't want to make grips. And then when the match is over, he's like, "Hey man, how come you weren't working hard? Why didn't you engage with me?"
I think that he's the type of guy that he's like, I'm going to disagree with you on this one. I think that he's the type of guy that he's real excited. He's kicking ass in the beginning. And the second you sweep him, you get into top position.
You're right.
You get in top position and he's like, oh man, wait, tap, tap, tap. I'm hurt.
This is good. So he's like, maybe he is like knee cutting really hard or something. That's good. He's like very, he's got a great game plan. He comes in very brash, but then you're right. He gets swept and then it's like, he has something in his eye or something.
He's like, hold on. I got something in my eye.
Dude, that's right. You're right. That's good. Okay. I like it.
That's pretty good. I like that.
I don't know if we can apply this to every movie, but every once in a while we can apply Jiu-Jitsu Corner, I think.
I think we should apply it to every movie possible.
Well, we can force it into the movie no matter what.
No matter what. It'll be Adam Sandler, Jack and Jill. And how do you take them down?
Joe, on a five-star rating, what do you give this movie?
10.
Oh, damn.
It doesn't get better.
A perfect score.
Again. It's a 5 out of 5, Joe. We can't just give
50 out of 5. This is a 5 out of 5, 100%.
Mark, what do you give this movie?
So I'm biased, and I've been biased this whole time. I like Alien more.
Wow.
So I give this one a 4.8.
That's close. Okay.
And I give Alien a 5.
I think they're both 5 stars for me.
I like this one more than Alien. I probably give this one 4.8, and I give Alien probably like a 4.6.
It's too low.
It's pretty low.
It's way too low. That's disrespect.
Joe, what's your favorite line?
I mean, I don't want to say "get away from her, you bitch" because that's pretty like, that's a little cliche.
Okay.
I do like when Hicks pulls the shotgun and he's like, I keep this nearby for close encounters. That's good.
Cool.
I like that.
Yeah.
You?
Mark, what do you got?
I mean, best moment is being in one of those cryo chambers and then waking up and just chewing on your stogie. It's got to be the coolest thing. Like
That is crazy.
Just having that need, oh god. Let me just.
He like had it on him too. That's what's so great.
It was like he probably went to sleep with it. Like
how long were they asleep
It
for?
couldn't have been that long.
Isn't that thing
Couldn't have been that
stale?
long. But
it's got to preserve.
Yeah,
it.
you're right. It does. It has to.
Like a humidifier or one of those fumigation things. Humidor.
All right. So if I'm not going to say the "get away from you," "get away from her, you bitch" line, it would probably be "game over, man,
shit,
game
that's
over."
Right. I always forget that's in here. Great.
Yeah, that's a great line from Paxton. Cool. So what are we doing next, Joe?
Man, this has been a labor of love getting this going, Greg. But next week, we are covering 1995, the crime masterpiece, Michael Mann's Heat, starring Al Pacino, Robert De Niro, Val Kilmer, Ashley Judd, John Voight.
A young Ashley Judd.
Also, and I'm just going to let the cat out of the bag here, the co-founder, former host, Paul, will be joining us for this pod. I mean, I set aside 4 hours to do this. This could be a 4-hour pod.
I don't think it might that be long, but I will say
let's stretch it. Let's see how far we can stretch it.
It's too much for just us to do. There's too much in this movie, and it's there's a lot to be said about this movie. I love this movie.
It's a masterpiece.
So it's a masterpiece. I'm excited.
It's going to be great.
Heat kicks
ass. It's the first time De Niro and Pacino were ever paired up on screen together after decades of like kind of circling each other as the two male actors of their generation, really. Michael Mann is just a genius director. One of my favorites, top 5 director for me, probably. You're right. There's so many things to talk about. The shootouts, the way he films it, the use of music, LA, how much influence Heat has had over basically every crime movie since this movie was made. Any movie that has a bank robbery in it, it directly rips Heat off. I mean, I'm sorry. It does. I could name 5 movies right now that have been made since Heat, and we'll talk about them, that are like, this is because of Heat. Incredible movie.
Right.
I've never seen Heat.
Seriously, Mark?
What?
Oh, you're going to watch it, though, for this, right?
I will be.
You got to watch it for this. You got to. It's also going to be awesome to have Paul back. So,
shout out Paul.
Yeah, we're excited to have Paul. So watch Heat if you haven't seen it. If you have, brush up on it. But that's going to be a marathon pod. Might be our longest pod. I don't know. We'll see. I set aside some significant time, Greg. We're not cutting any corners.
Yeah,
taking
for sure.
a day off.
Nope.
No.
Cool. All right. That's all I got.
With that said, the primecutpodcast@gmail.com, prime_cut_podcast on Instagram, Prime Cut Podcast on YouTube. I don't know what the TikTok handle is, Greg.
You can just search Prime Cut Podcast.
I don't know if there's any.
You'll find it.
Do you think we'll have anything controversial from this pod?
Definitely.
Okay.
Yeah.
We can fit it in right now. Joe, just go ahead and say something controversial. I'll fit it in. You hate.
I mean, I like Terminator better than Terminator 2. James Cameron. I don't know. That's number 1. Paxton can be kind of annoying in this movie. That might piss some people off.
He's dead.
He is dead.
What?
He is dead.
Have some respect.
God. All right. Well, my phone's buzzing off the. Yeah.
Already blowing up.
Yeah. We're doing Heat next week. It's on. Yeah, it's on. Mark the date. Yep. All right. Talk to you later.
All right. This was good.